to the bottom, I go back to the top of the slide. Where I stop and I turn and I go for a ride. Till I get to the bottom and I see you again. Yeah, yeah.
One RSVP, so we made a pretty good call. Well, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Tom McDonald, and I'm from Mazda. And let me just welcome you all to the Motorsports Hall of Fame annual media lunch. We're excited and very pleased to be able to sponsor the program for you all today. I'd like to also welcome the Detroit Sports Broadcasters Association to this lunch. This is their monthly or semi-monthly or quarterly meeting. So, Vicki Foley, this is your meeting for the month, I guess. But I just want to say that, as you know, racing, motorsports is the DNA of Mazda. And we have been in motorsports, and we're very happy to have one of the recipients this year, Tommy Kendall, who drove Mazda RX-7 to numerous victories. But the fact is that we are racing, we are motorsports. When we say zoom, zoom, it's in every car that we build. So I'd just like again to welcome you all to Detroit, to the Detroit Athletic Club, and to the Motorsports Hall of Fame. We're going to have a nice lunch starting with salad in the main course, and then we'll hear from our president, our board chairman, and of course our honorees and our master of ceremonies, David Hall. So enjoy the lunch. Thank you.
Mazda, and we want to have some opening remarks here from Director of Motorsports at Mazda, but also the Chairman of the Board of Directors of the Motorsports Hall of Fame of America. Mr. He's making his way here, John Doonan.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for making time in your day to join us. This is one of my favorite events of the entire racing season. We go to over 3 dozen at Mazda because of all of our involvements. And this one in particular, as a student of the racing game since I was a little boy, to be up here with all of these superstars we call them heroes of horsepower is really special. My day job, as Ron said, is Director of Motorsport for Mazda. And we're extremely proud, as Tom said, that motorsports is such a key part of who we are as a brand. If you flip to page 7 in your program there, you'll see the ad we did honoring our good friend, Tommy Kendall. We joked before the lunch that our history is starting to come around now. We catch up with so many of the other brands, but Tommy's really our first inductee, if you will, from our Mazda racing ladder. We have a sports car academy where we train young drivers like Tommy did, who started out with the dream of racing in closed wheel cars in series like the Tudor United Sports Car Championship that IMSA runs, or eventually the 24 Hours of Le Mans, where we have great history as the only Asian automaker to win that race. Then we have the Mazda Road to Indy. We have one of our Mazda Road to Indy drivers with us today, Michael Johnson. Recognize Michael. Michael runs in the Pro Mazda Championship, which is just a couple steps below the Verizon IndyCar Series. Michael had an incident at St. Pete, but is recovering extremely well, and I know is eager to get back into a race car as soon as he can. In my spare time, I have the opportunity to serve as the chairman of the board for the Motorsports Hall of Fame of America. And as I said, as a student of the game and as that young kid hanging on the fence, no matter what it was, from a circle track to a drag strip to an off-road race to a sports car race, I truly fell in love with all of these heroes. They were my idols. Didn't spend a lot of time collecting baseball cards as a kid, but I certainly memorized race results. But if you roll the clock back about 10 months, Motorsports Hall of Fame of America made a historic announcement about moving and finally finding our permanent home, if you will, in Daytona Beach, Florida. So just a year ago, or just about a year ago in August, when we had our 26th annual induction, we made that announcement. Simultaneously, we made another historic announcement that day. We made an announcement about a very aggressive capital campaign to reconfigure that space at Daytona. And if it wasn't for the France family and the leadership of Joey Chitwood at Daytona International Speedway, we wouldn't have had this space. But in the end, we needed to reconfigure, we need to restore that space. We announced a $7.5 million capital campaign just 10 months ago. Well, I'm pleased to report today to all of you special guests at our kickoff that we have received multi-million-dollar commitments towards our $7.5 million goal. That is terrific news. What that means is we are on track to open up in our new space at Daytona International Speedway during Speed Weeks 2016. So it'll be an exciting time for us. Certainly a part of us will always be here in Detroit, but this is really a new era for the Motorsports Hall of Fame of America. So we're very excited about that, and it is indeed great news. However, we have a long way to go. So my fellow board members and I, Ron Watson, George Levy, certainly inductees will be asking, will be seeking gifts from friends of the Hall of Fame, from corporations, such that we can achieve that goal and keep the spirit of the Hall of Fame alive and all of the personalities that are being inducted here and all of those who have been inducted in the previous 26 induction ceremonies alive, be able to share all aspects of our sport with the next generation of young fans. So thank you very much for being here today. Enjoy all the stories. I think that's one of the most special things about these few days here in Detroit is all the stories from the current inductees, but certainly all the others who have come back to join us for this annual and very special event. Thank you very much.
John says he works in his spare time for the Motorsports Hall of Fame. This guy has a 25-hour day every day. And we are so grateful that whatever time he gives us, he does a fabulous job, and he is totally committed, as you can see, and we're grateful to him and to Mazda. Now I want to introduce some people here. This is my job only. I'm going to get out of here after I introduce all the wonderful personalities here that are with us. First of all, we have a couple of ladies that are very important to the Hall of Fame. One is the sister of our Hall of Famer, Peter Revson, our great friend, Jennifer Revson. Jennifer. And the First Lady of Motorsports, Linda Vaughn. We're grateful every year to have a bunch of returning inductees, people that we continuously honor over the years and come back to celebrate their own careers and welcome new members to that very, very exclusive family. So I'm just gonna, they're all over here, and so we can get a microphone to them during, if you have, you can direct questions to the new folks, but our returning inductees are available for questions as well. We've gathered them all in this one area. First of all, winner of hundreds of short track races, a member of the Alabama gang, Mr. Donnie Allison. Grand Am champion, Formula V champion, two-time winner of the 24 Hours of Daytona, EFR, Elliott Forbes Robinson. 10-time national midget champion, the king of the midgets, Mel Kenyon. Winner of 3 Gold Cups and championships in nearly every kind of hydroplane racing, Tom Deef. 3-time winner of the Daytona 500, the leader of the Alabama gang, Bobby Allison. And a winner in open wheel off-road sports cars, stock cars in the 1963 Indy 500. And he is the one A lot of people think they're Parnella Jones, but this is Parnella Jones. And now for our new inductees and their representatives. First of all, there was a guy named Duke. Mike Brudno from the Free Press called me on the phone. He says, I'm going to do a special story about Duke Nalen because he was Mike is from Australia, and he said he was the perfect guy that Australians loved. The swashbuckling guy with the leather helmet out there carousing and sitting up in that big open wheel car, and that is the Iron Duke Nalen. He won lots of midget races. He tamed the famous Novi Special, and he's represented here by his son, Patrick Nalen. Lloyd Ruby, during his day, was called the most famous, or the best driver that never won the Indy 500. He had it within his grasp on several occasions, and bad luck, hard luck Lloyd, they called him. But he did, he had much success. He was a great sports car driver, won the 24 Hours of Daytona, won 12 Hours of Sebring. He's got two representatives here, his daughter, Marianne Bailey, and his son, John Ruby. This next guy is called the Legend. He's the legend of off-road racing for sure. He's a multiple winner of the Baja 1000. Walker Evans. Six-time NHRA Pro Stock Champion, winner of 97, is that right? NHRA Championship events, the professor of Pro Stock, Warren Johnson. Three-time IMSA champion, four-time Trans Am champion, Tommy Kendall. So these are our special guests. Ask a lot of questions. We have co-moderators here. First, roaming the audience with a microphone, and he'll be prodding you all to ask questions. He is like, you remember him from ESPN, but he is the only broadcaster, I think, to broadcast all the major divisions of NASCAR, IndyCar and Indy 500, and NHRA drag racing, Marty Reed. And the moderator, and I'll welcome him up here. He's going to be the MC tomorrow night as well. He's a Formula 5000 and Trans Am champion, a racer's racer, and now he's the voice of Formula 1 on NBC Sports, and a Hall of Fame inductee himself, David Haas.
Oh boy, Tommy Kendall's going to have a nasty night tomorrow. It's wonderful to be here again for the 27th induction ceremonies here in Detroit. It's a great shame that it will be our last trip to Detroit, and I hope I'm allowed to continue my moderating exercises down in Daytona, as I shall be living much closer to Daytona than I am at the moment. Great bunch of drivers here. I think the chairman, John, Ron, all aboard, and all the voters have done another stellar job in selecting an absolutely outstanding crowd of horsepower here. Just a terrific. I had dinner last night with Walker Evans and Ray Parnell Jones, one of my heroes, because he punched John Surtees and ordered my brother. And he beat him as well, obviously. And it was a wonderful evening. Phyllis was there, and also Walker's son and his daughter-in-law. So it was a terrific evening at the Prism restaurant here in the town, not Prism. And it was a really great evening, and I'm looking forward to more fun games tonight. Well, and of course tomorrow night. So I suppose with no further ado, we really should, of course, the Alabama gang that I call them there, Bobby and Donnie. Who could forget the very first flag-to-flag broadcast of NASCAR, which ended with CBS back in 1979, and I was fortunate enough to be in the booth with Ken Squire and old Herbert here, Herbert Allison, racing with Cale Yarborough, running away with the race. It was a great old day. You can see the colours, you can see these two guys stalking each other, pulling away. Last lap, KO, of course, then the comb over to be called Colomos, and that's what, it was actually down in that year. And he started flapping about, he's having this fight. And then, of course, Richard Petty goes through to win the Daytona 500 for the 99th time. And on the slowing down now, Bobby joins, and he leads out. And they're going hysterical down turn 3. Ken Squire's going hysterical in the booth. The crowd's going hysterical because Richard Petty's won another Daytona 500. And I'm thinking, well, and I really do think that NASCAR should pay Ken Squire about $1 million a year for life, because he really pushed CBS into doing NASCAR. They didn't know what NASCAR was. They're up in New York, Madison Avenue. They didn't know anything about NASCAR. And he kept pushing to finally, in 1976, a guy called Clarence Cross came down, saw 500, and he went back, and I guess a few years later they did that first broadcast in 1979, and it really did put NASCAR right on the map. I mean, you couldn't have written a script to two of the most famous guys in the sport fighting each other. Now there's 3 of them fighting each other. Then the most famous guy, wins the race. And there was a very heavy snowstorm up in the northeast, so suddenly out of nowhere, they had an audience of about 9 million people. And anyway, they put them right on the map. So as I say, without further ado, I've just said that one to I've done more. So we need some questions. So our man Marty Reed has a microphone, who I worked with many years ago.
If anybody has a question, go ahead and put up your hands. One thing I'll add, I always loved Bobby's answer when he said to him, well, what were you doing punching Kale? And he said, no, I didn't punch Kale. His face ran into my fist.
Hi, Steve Purdy from Shumpiker Productions. I've got a question for Tommy Kendall. Most race car drivers are short in stature and lean and so forth. Has your tall, imposing stature been a detriment to you in your career?
Kind of chubby.
Very true. And I used to be thin, and I used to have more hair, but I was always this height. Well, not always. I was 5'5" my junior year in high school when I got my driver's license. 5'5", 110 pounds. If I could have hung on to that, I would have really got places. But it was one of those things where I was hell-bent and wanting to go to open-wheel cars, and that ultimately was part of the reason that didn't work out. But the sedan stuff, even some of that was challenging in Daytona where you had to share a seat. But once I got into the Trans Am where I could get everything just how I wanted it, and some reverb here, it worked out. So when I saw David this morning, he said, I forget how big you are. So I get that over and over. I don't think I'm still growing, but it's just, I used to curse it. When I wanted to play basketball, I was short. When I wanted to be a race car driver, I got tall. So it's one of those things.
Well, it must have been a big detriment to him, really, because obviously he is a big lad, and I remember that terrible crash you had at Watkins Glen. Bob and I were calling that race. And I tell you what, we were very, very, very worried for a few minutes there because you slammed into that barrier head on at most amazing speed. That's what you fully expect. Of course, obviously, you haven't lived ever since. You're going to need
Still
that.
here.
But still here. So, everybody
Marty, everybody, I'd like to ask every driver up there a question, but I have one in particular. Warren Johnson, Michelin drag racing. Could you tell the folks what you're working on and when we'll be back? Because I know you're the professor.
Well, I've been called worse by close friends, so we're not worried about that. But right now we're working on a bunch of development projects, kind of cleaning out the shop backlog of work that we've had. And if we can find the support that are required to race at the level I want to race to be competitive, yeah, certainly I'll be back out. I'm a little older than some of the guys, but I think I can still do that.
Don't sit down. I'm going to set you up like I did last night. For those of you who may not follow drag racing as much, Warren was always about the car. He was an engineer first, and the driver was always second, even though he won 6 championships and 97 victories. And what was your definition of a driver?
Well, I've always looked at a driver as just a required amount of ballast, not a source of information, and all the data acquisition pretty much proves that.
And now you know why they call him the professor. Who else has a question? Let's go right over here.
I just want to congratulate the whole Hall of Fame for getting all of these people together, because from all the various disciplines, it's just quite an honor to see all of our heroes here. And one question I have it's kind of open to the floor, is do we miss the ability of a series like an IROC where there can be cross-pollination of the drivers in the various disciplines, and would we like to see something like that come back?
Well, I mean, the problem with the IROC is you have got so many disciplines, and obviously NASCAR is very big over here, sports car racing worldwide, but those guys don't want to race an open wheel car. The open wheel guys specialize in open wheels, and they don't particularly want to drive a sedan type of car. And the problem with the IROC the last time around, it really became just a race for the NASCAR guys because they were all on ovals. And obviously, it's an incredibly expensive exercise to put on, to provide all those cars for like 30 drivers. You really want to have a round robin and start up at 30 and move down. And I think the whole thing is just so prohibitively expensive now. Unless, of course, you persuade your friend Mr. Newman back there. You have some sort of an IROC where they use Mazda open wheel cars and saloons as well. So that's just the way I did the put the on board. It shouldn't cost about 40 million.
John, let me ask you a question about your dad. I'll give you a chance to get up to the microphone. If you could put into words what this means for your family, with him being inducted now, finally being recognized, as he should have probably been many, many years ago.
Yeah, it means everything to our family. We're very honored to get to be part of this group. And he did get inducted to the Indy 500 Hall of Fame, which was a big deal, and the Texas Hall of Fame. But to get the motocross sports Hall of Fame is up on the top. Very nice.
And I promised I wouldn't make Mary Ann answer any questions. So, yeah, I kept my promise. Anybody else have questions? Walker.
One thing.
Go ahead.
I was telling Tommy when Dad passed away, Carol Shelby called me and he goes, "You know what? Your dad was my hero." He said, "Give me any of the drivers and I'll take whoever it is. He's the purest driver I ever had."
Great. That's great. Thank you for sharing that.
That's the amazing thing about all of you, because when you saw it, I did the Indianapolis 500 4 times and really, got to know it a bit. And it always amazed me how somebody who could be so languid, so relaxed, so slow talking, could go so freaking fast.
And this is coming from a guy who fell asleep on the starting grid of the Indianapolis 500. So, you can't slide through all the way.
It was very warm.
It was very warm. Tell everybody how you got awakened that day.
Well, we don't tell them to start your engines, so we fired up the engines, and then there was a rain shower came across, and went the track down, and so obviously the whole thing's cooled off temporarily. And one of the drivers got out and stamped around the pit lane and up and down the grid. And I had my helmet on, I'm strapped in, and all the straps are so complicated to do up and everything. I thought, well, I might as well just stay here. And then the sun came out, and of course it just rained, so it's humid, and it got hot and humid, warm. So what are you going to do? I mean, I just nodded off. As you would. And my owner was a guy called Roy Woods, who had a bit of a limp and a stick, and he took broken his leg or something, the other stick, and he kept him tripping around his head with his stick and the helmet. So when he got hot, he goes, "This is not the thing to do on the group for the Indy 500."
Walker, for those who don't know your relationship with Parnelli Jones, these guys, they're 70 and you're about 81 now, I think, something like that. Am I giving away secrets? Well, if these guys were on snowmobiles, Walker, tell us about some of the experiences that you two have had. Everything turns into a race with these two. I mean, if they were going to the men's room, it would be a race.
Well, we both have had houses up in Utah, and one day we went down Salt Lake. We were going to get some brand new snowmobiles. We said, told this guy that ran the store there, I said, "I want 2 of those." Finally, he said, "Yeah, I want 2 of these here." We walk in his office, sit down, and he starts writing up the paper, and he said, "Let's see your driver's license." I throw mine out there. Finally, threw his out there. And that was the end of it. I mean, the guy just about fell over. He loaded up his snowmobile and ours, and we never got rid of him for weeks. I mean, he was up Utah every afternoon riding snowmobiles with us. But up in the Camas and the Heber area, Strawberry area, I don't know if very many people are here from Utah, but it's a gorgeous area. And Cornelia and I have spent hours and hours, miles and miles riding every part of that from Utah clear over into Wyoming, over Evansville and everywhere. It's just been part of our life. I mean, we've had a couple of little problems. We've been stuck for hours at times and had to put on our thinking cap. We ran out of gas. I know there was a clump of trees one time, and I said, well, I'm going to beat him, go around this side of the trees. He was on the gas, come around that, and we both tore each other's running boards right off the side of the machine, flipping through the snow and everything. But that's always been part of it, and I love the man to death. Always.
When's the last time you actually drove in a race? Because you're still doing some driving.
Now you're talking about an off-road.
Off-road or anything right now?
April of this year.
There you go.
I ran a 1,300-mile rally race in Baja, California. I got second. The guy that beat me was Robbie Gordon. So.
Anybody else have some questions? Patrick, can you take the microphone for a second? I know you are a huge motorsports fan across all the platforms. Put this in perspective from both your families and from your own personal experience.
From being around racing for ever, I got to go to the Speedway in Indianapolis at 2 years old. Saw my first race there in 1964, and that was well after my father had quit driving. I think to have my dad put in this Motorsports Hall of Fame is just overly huge. He was also in the Indianapolis Motor Speedway Hall of Fame. I bring him with me. Here's his ring from that. He was always a really good race car driver, but I think the big thing with him was he was a great ambassador for the sport. You know, there was people when you would meet my dad, he would remember something about you. You might see him 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 years later. He'd say, oh, I remember. Yeah, I used to run the board tracks where you're from. You know, and you'd remember something. He would autographs, talk to people, you know, just fan friendly. He really represented motorsports very well. And when I got the letter from Ron, I was reading this letter that Dad was being put in this. I read it like 3 times. I called my niece Deanna sitting over here. I said, I can't believe it. I said, you know, if you go to Indianapolis, or you go around dirt tracks, you knew of Duke Naylor. But in Glendora, you know, for drag racing, NASCAR, not really. And to be put in this, and in Novi, where it's located, and the Novi was the car that really made me famous. Wow. That's all I can really say. And I want to put something up that I did this morning in the interview. There is no Duke Naylor. That makes me kind of surprised. That's a nickname. A professor, legend. It's a nickname. That actually came from one of his brothers years ago back in Chicago. There was a cartoon character in the Sunday newspaper named Duke McGluke. And for some reason that stuck. And they called Dad Duke his entire career. So if you're a Duke Naylor, that's my dad, but so is Dennis Clay Naylor. And so I know he's here, he's watching. He was fans of Bobby Allison. He was a huge fan of yours, I'm telling you right now. He was. He knew Carnelli very well. He knew everybody. Everybody seemed to know him. And it's just a huge pleasure to be here today.
Anybody else?
Any other questions for
David? Oh, here we go.
What was the last year your dad drove the 500? The famous picture was in '49 when the fire was going across the track and all that. I was down there when he was driving. I don't remember the last year he really drove.
He ran in 49 when they had the crash, when they broke the rear axle. He was out the entire 1950 season, came back in 51, sat on the pole in the Novi, and then tried a couple more times, but his last actual race as a race car test around, he was helping a guy named Wally Zale, who was a big name around Rhodey Speedway and things like that in Illinois. And he would stooge for him. Or if you don't know what stooge means, he was a mechanic, he'd help him. And he was always asking the other guys, the other car owners, can I drive your car? I want to drive your car. One night a guy shows up. He wasn't really up to par, had this really nice, what they call a big car. Dad's got his small helmet in his pocket. He's ready to go. He gets in the car. He wins the feature. He wins his first race, which was a sprint car race. Does his whole career. Wins his last race in a midget with the legendary Johnny Paul.
Paul Slagle has a question for David Hahn.
What year did you fall asleep down there?
1973, the Eagle offering for Royal Charlie Van Label Cup. Now, unlike his dad did, I think Duke or Clayton still a no-brainer. I didn't win my first race, I didn't win my last race. In fact, I don't remember when I did win a race. I can't remember my last win, which is the Riverside Transit in 1983 at Riverside, which is now a shopping centre. That's how much my career went.
This is directed to John and Marianne. I met your dad at the Indianapolis, the old motel. Bought a copy of his book. I believe it was called The Greatest Man to Never Win the Indy 500. And the one year where the fuel line ripped the damaged side of the car, he was destined to win the race that year. How did he deal with some of those disappointments and keep coming back time after time to keep trying to win that race?
John, don't look at her. I promised her she didn't have to talk.
You know what, that was his biggest disappointment. He took everything in stride, and somebody asked him right after that what happened. He said, this wasn't my day. He never blamed anybody, never faulted anything. But he never brought it home with him. He'd leave it on the track. He would come home and he would offer it, shake it off. He just said, this track is unlucky. I know that's got to do with men, because he won a lot of other races. But he always had a great attitude about it. He never got upset. And just did his stride. That 69 was cut and they pulled the gas tank out. That was the year that Mario won. They went back and forth. It was disappointing, but he couldn't stride.
Always remember something that Tony Kanaan said right up until the year he won the 500. He goes, "You don't pick Indy picks you."
Bob Benko, WLHA. I'd like to ask Tom, what happened to his blonde hair?
We're getting personal now.
Some people's hair turns gray, mine turned loose.
Tommy, I found out what dandruff is. It's the suicide notes left by our hair right before they jump.
I have a question for Walker Evans. You go ahead, Tommy.
Let me finish, Gene. I had really blonde hair when I was little, and then it got a little darker. But then in the '97 season, actually during the off season, my little brother came. He had his hair bleached white. And I said, that looks pretty cool. He says, you don't have to guts do this. So I did it. And I showed up at the Roush Christmas party, and he was not terribly impressed. But I took it to the first race, and that's when we started that win streak. And once that win streak started, I wasn't about to undo it. And then about 4 or 5 races into it, some of the crew guys said, with each win, we're gonna, one of us will bleach our hair. And the word came down, you bleach your hair, you're fired. And so everybody said, hold it. So I said, when we break that record, everybody will do it. What's he gonna do, fire all of us? And so when we broke the record at Watkins Glen, all the guys bleached their hair. And I told Minx, I said, now the secret is, Linda, I know these things now, where I said, you don't want it, if you go part way, it gets like a potato chip. I said, you don't want that. I said, you gotta get it white or it doesn't look right. I don't know what happened, but Minx got something, and it was burning the heck out of his head, and he didn't dare say nothing, because he wanted it white. He had like all these acid burns all over his head. So it was kind of, now you don't even look twice, but back then it was kind of a signature. And I actually, along those lines, I told Jordan Taylor, I said, you need to grow a mullet. I said, that'll give you. And I don't know if you saw how long he stuck with that mullet. It wasn't for about a whole darn year. And it was not attractive, but yours is natural.
have a question for Walker Evans. I had the great misfortune to be in a 250-mile off-road race with Walker. It was 5 50-mile laps. The first 10 miles was pure washboard. And at the end, I don't know if you know how evil it is. It's like an all-day plane crash. I think that was Parnelli's quote. Walker, you know, I remember the last lap, you slowed down just for a second, you said, just think, we only have to do this son of a bitch one more time. It was like 50 more miles. And I want you to tell us what is it like for you the day after the race. Whether it's been Baja or that horrific race, which by the way we won. What is it like for you from head to toe?
Well, back in those days when Gene was with me at one event, things have come a long way since then. Bigger tires, better shock absorbers, a lot more travel. You know, there's 28 inches of front wheel travel, 31, 32 inches of rear wheel travel. I've often said that today's racing in a brand new trophy truck or something, you go over a big jump, it's like landing in a fat lady's apron. It is soft, it's cozy, but I know what you're talking about. Yes, indeed. Back in the 70s, back in the 80s, and in the 90s, things started getting better, but it was rough, it was tough. You did hurt, you ached, and only good thing about off-road racing is pain has no memory. You always come back.
Story I'll share with you. Years ago when I was doing the Mickey Thompson Stadium Series, Walker said, you know, to understand this better, you need to drive the truck. So we were at San Diego, and he puts me in the truck, and he's standing on one side of the camera, and Phyllis is on the other side. And Marty makes the mistake of getting airborne, and he told me, don't turn the wheel till you land. Well, stupid me started to turn the wheel, and we go end over end. Walker, you can hear him and the microphone and the camera laughing hysterically, and Phyllis, who was the bean counter, goes, "Oh my God, he crashed the truck!" she was adding up the dollar signs, and he's just laughing like crazy because he knows this is going to end up on the air, and it did, and we had a good time with it. But it was a learning experience, and he's right. The shocks every year got better and better. I was amazed at how well the stadium truck handled it, let alone what the trophy trucks do today.
Yeah, I have a question for the racers here. You know, modern race cars have got so much technology now with the electronics and telematics and everything that some of older drivers were complaining that they've become easier to drive. But I wonder, in fact, whether, you know, going back to the first races, that's always been the case. You know, whether you would have your predecessors say, you know, your cars are much easier to drive than in my day. I'm just curious what you guys have to say about that.
That's Parnelli.
Let me get the mic.
Well, you're asking me if they're easier to drive. How would I know? It's been 14 years since I've driven one. However, it's pretty obvious, you know, today we used to do different kinds of races. You know, all year long. Maybe I used to do 65 races a year. Just sprint cars, stock cars, sports cars, GP, so on and so forth. Today, the drivers are all put in one series, so to speak. And not so bad in NASCAR, but it's affected Indy cars especially. The more downforce you put in the automobiles today, the easier they are to drive. And the reason how that's proven is if you start to take some of the downforce away from some of the other drivers today, they say, oh no, you can't do that. You can't do that. So they give a lot of security with all the downforce to the cars, and it's just a lot of difference in my way.
I will refresh Parnelli's memory because when I won the championship in '97, they brought his old 1970 car out and my car out, and we switched. And this car had a seat that came up to right here, and there was a lever next to the seat that released the belt so you could reach the dash and get the switches, and then you'd sit back and then you'd lock this lever down, and that would lock the belts down. And I had to drive it, but I was like terrified. And so I came in, there's no power steering. I said, you are a stud. He got out of my car, he said, if I knew they were this easy to drive, I'd still be racing. So I think But then now the more troubling thing to me, I was out for a little while until I drove the Viper, and you get in that car and it's a sexy, it's got huge fenders in the wing, and they've got no power because they've done the restrictors, and it's still hard to win. But it's just that's kind of my big gripe is that they've sort of made them, and their progress makes them better, but they've even made them so they don't drive themselves. So I think we're starting to see the power come back in the Indy cars. They're starting to get big power again, so hopefully that will sort of filter its way into the other as well.
Anyone else? David?
Well,
Hold on, let me get the Let me get the mic. I'm getting my exercise today.
The best way I can say is, how about watching a race now, today, after the race, the driver gets out, jumps up on the car, throws beer all over his crew, kisses his girlfriend, wife, baby, and everybody else. And back in our day, they had to get us out with an ambulance. When we got done with a 500-mile race, you were done. I don't mean happily done, you were done. And that's the difference. The cars, I'm sure, are hard to drive. Mike Parnelli ain't been on in a long time. I really don't know if I wanted to get one. But our cars, we had no power steering, we had no cool suits, we had none of that stuff. And, I mean, it's technology, what we were talking about earlier, is true, but I think the cars back in Parnelli's day, in our day, were harder to drive.
They are probably easy to drive. They're very, very complex, especially those Formula 1 cars, because you've got your steering wheel, the computer, which is about everything you can imagine on it. So, and as Tommy said, I guess the real key is it's still probably easier to drive than certainly the physically. That's not very much easier to drive. Are you going to say anything more wrong? I hope not. You? No. Oh dear, I didn't think so. Oh yeah. Tonight we have more fun and games, and we'll see you there later on. We'll have some more stories. And very nice to see you all here. For the last time, for Joint Athletic Club. Thank you very much, Tom, for putting us up here. And thank you very much for Mars Day. You've all done a great job for motorsports in general, and obviously for the motorsports all